My name is Jamin Gurker. I'm your first friend in Alaska, and luckily for you, I'm also an associate real estate broker in South Central Alaska. And today we're going to be talking about the small real estate market of Eagle River and really what the implications are for you as a buyer, a seller, and we'll say investor as well. Before we get jumping into that, feel free to go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe, and without further ado, let's get into it. First thing that we see is the number of single-family properties in Eagle River has gone up a little bit because the number of properties available on the market this time last year was about 26 and now it's 32, which that is a good increase. I'll take it. Normally, prior to COVID, we'd see the number closer to about 110 up to about 140. So we're seeing that we're still got a long ways to go. We're still like 25% of the inventory that we normally have. That is a step in the right direction, though. We're just probably not going to get back to our pre-COVID levels anytime soon, but we'll talk more about that in the summary. Next thing we see is that the number of properties that have actually sold in Eagle River went from 37 this time last year to 32 this year. So a bit of a dip there. Looking historically prior to COVID, though, we do see that the number of properties being sold is anywhere from about 26 to, 26 to 37. Sorry. So 26 to 37 is kind of the norm. So the fact that we're at 32 really does tell me that we're right about normal for the number of properties that are actually selling, even with the inventory being at about a quarter of what it normally is, which is indicative of having a lot of demand for properties here in Eagle River. Again, talk about more about that in the summary. All right, now this next graph, I'm really taking with a big heaping grain of salt because it says, according to this, we went from about 500,000 year to date this time last year to about 494,000 this year. So that sounds like, oh my gosh, we're seeing a dip. This is it. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. It's a small market. And we do see that the month of February, which that's really, so let me just read this off for you. Looking at January this time last year, we see that the average sold price in Eagle River was about 460. This year in January, 525,000. Jumping forward to March, the average sold price went from about 468,000 to about 518,000. So again, pretty big jump there. The difference, though, is the month of February, it went from about 507,000 and it dropped down to about 406,000. So what that tells me is that there's just not a whole lot of properties that were selling and the month of February. And going back, yeah, that is the case. It was like 16 this time last year, 15 this year. When you have that small of a sample size, I'm pretty sure we just had a couple of like really low priced properties that sold. And that's kind of throwing the numbers off there. I can say anecdotally, trying to buy stuff in Eagle River right now with folks, it's a dogfight, and you just have to know that is going to be part of the deal going into it. We had multiple offers on a property, and it was not even on the market. Like, it was an off-market property. Like, they were not even advertising, and we had other people we're competing with. So I'm not really seeing a decrease in the market right now for Eagle River based off of this. I think once you look closer at the pudding, you're going to see exactly what the truth is. But that's what I'm seeing there. Let's move on to condos. Looking at condos, we see that this time last year, there were 7 condos available on the market, and now there are 7 condos available on the market. Not a whole lot of movement one way or the other there. What we do see is that this time of year in previous years prior to COVID, anywhere from about 19 to 24 condos available on the market was normal. So the fact that we're sitting at about 7 does give you an idea. We're sitting at about a third of what we normally have as far as the inventory for condos in Eagle River goes, which that's not as deep of a cut percentage-wise as what Anchorage is experiencing, but still that's a pretty big decrease. Next, we see that the number of condos actually selling in Eagle River went from 3 this time last year to 8 this year, which that's a good increase, and it does get us back to about what the normal number of properties selling in Eagle River during the month of March, even prior to COVID. Prior to COVID, we actually would see about 8, maybe 10 or 11 properties selling for the month of March. So 8 is right about normal, and that again is pretty indicative of the demand for condos in Eagle River, just because we're having about the same number of properties selling as we had when we had like a way more inventory available percentage-wise than what we had before. Now, looking at the average sold price for condos in Eagle River, these are average year-to-date numbers, and we see that this time last year the average sold price was right about $319,000, and this year it's about $347,000. So that's approximately an 8% increase, and not a whole lot of surprise there because again, we do see a lot of demand for these condos in Eagle River. Like it's Eagle River is a pretty desirable place for a lot of people to live. It's an easy commute location. You have a lot of conveniences and amenities here, and being able to find an affordable option is something that a lot of people do, which that does create demand, which increases the overall price. So that's not a huge surprise there. And even with the price going up, you're talking about $350 or so around the price range, and we're realistically probably around like $520 or so for the average sold price for homes in Eagle River. So for single family homes, I should say. So there is a pretty big difference there. It's still a lot more affordable to do condos, and that being the case, though, it does create demand for it, though. All right, let's take a break real quick here. I'm sure if you've been watching for a little bit, you've heard me mention a million times that I do have a podcast called The Alaskan Journey, and I interview people who've recently moved up to Alaska and have them tell their stories and have them really say, okay, what do I like? What do I dislike about Alaska? So you can hear the authentic story about what it's like living on the last frontier from somebody other than just me. So do go check that out. Link for that is going to be in the description section down below. We also have a lot of the episodes available right here on the YouTube channel, so make sure you go check that out. Also, just a quick PSA, my main bread and butter is going to come from actually helping people buy and sell real estate. A lot of people, they'll move up here and they kind of hesitant to reach out to me because they're concerned that I'm too busy, and because I have all the content on YouTube and podcasting and all that. I love creating that content, and I'm very strategic about my time and making sure that the priority remains to help people to buy and sell real estate as opposed to just creating a YouTube channel. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. Always got time for you if you are looking at making the move up here, or looking to buy or sell up, or if you currently live up here and you're looking to buy, sell, or invest. Okay, done with that. Let's keep it moving. Moving on to the multifamily market here in Eagle River, we're seeing kind of a decrease. There's not a whole lot of availability for multifamily properties in Eagle River. Most landlords here in Eagle River, they like what they got, and they don't really want to let it go if they can possibly avoid it, because the tenants are really solid out here. You don't really have a whole lot of headache, and it's kind of the ideal scenario. You're not running into a whole lot of issues as long as you're really staying on top of making sure that your property is well maintained. Now, what we're seeing is that the inventory went from 4 this time last year to 2 this year. So it's come down, obviously, but starting at 4 is not a whole lot to begin with. Looking historically, normally we'd see anywhere from about 7 to 8 properties available on the market. So obviously way down historically, but even 7 or 8 is really not starting with much to begin with. Next, we see that the number of multifamilies sold this time last year was 2, and this year it is 0. Now, normally for the month of March, even prior to COVID, about 1 or 0 was kind of what we'd expect for the month of March, so not a whole lot of surprise there. All right, let's get into the average sold price here. Honestly, I might stop using the average sold price for multifamily in Eagle River just because it's so unusable as a statistical point. Because according to this, like the average sold price this time last year was about $1 million, and now it's sitting at about $442,000. I don't think that it's dropped that much. Obviously, we have like a large commercial property that sold around this time last year, and that's really thrown all the numbers off here. Or I guess I should say a couple of years ago. About a year and a half ago. So I think that's really what's thrown all the numbers off here. It does help a little bit, though, to look that in 2023, average sold price, it was right about $428,000, and now it's sitting at about $143,000. So I think that is a little bit more consistent in what we're seeing. And the big thing is that the rents are going up in Eagle River. Everybody passed all these bonds a little bit ago, which increased the taxes. which necessitates an increase in rent. So the rents are going up, and that does increase the value of the property as well. So values for properties in Eagle River are continuing to go up for multifamily. It's just such a small sample size. It's hard to get any statistical arm or grasp around just how much it's going up. But let's go and talk a little bit about the summary. If I'm a seller and I'm looking at this, I'm feeling good at the moment. I do want to make sure that I'm doing the work and making sure the property presents in its best light, and making sure that we're putting our best foot forward there. This isn't the market we had in 2021, so I'm not going to negotiate as aggressively as I might have before. If I'm a buyer and I'm looking at this market, I've mentioned this before, we are just going to be ready to compete, okay? So we're going to expect to make 3, 4, 5 offers on properties, and we're going to go all out, and we're not going to get it multiple times, and that is just the expectation. And if that's too much for you, then we probably want to look somewhere else, because it's you got to have a lot of stick-to-itiveness to purchase a property in Eagle River these days. If I'm an investor and I'm looking at the market in Eagle River, a lot of investors are pretty happy with the assets that they have here. Best thing I can say is probably just improve what you currently have, and that's probably going to be a solid ROI for you, because Eagle River continues to be a pretty in-demand place. Like, I put one of my fourplex units up just a little bit ago, and I actually pull it up, and I realized, oh shoot, I am like the only rental available in Eagle River right now, like in this price range. Like, there's just not a whole lot available out there. So, make sure you improve what you have, and I think that's going to give you a solid ROI. But this has been my video talking about Eagle River. Hope it's been useful. Reach out if you have questions. Talk with you later.